Oh man, hay fever. There's going to be a lot of this today. Hello, welcome to episode, every time. And I can't check my phone because I'm filming on it. Hello, welcome to the Knitting Pickle Podcast. My name is Laura Penrose. I am here today with a old school, normal format podcast for you. How exciting. It's been a few weeks. It's been a big few weeks in my little world, which we'll touch on later, but I am here and excited and so ready to talk knitting. I feel like it's been ages since I've just sat and talked about knitting for, let's be honest, an hour and a half and just gone deep into my craft with you guys, and I'm so excited for it. Before we get cracking, there is a little bit of admin to do. If you have been with me for a little while, you might be aware that I recently lost my Instagram account, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise, more of which we're going to go into later. But since my last video where I talked all about it, I have started a new Instagram, and I would just like to point you in the direction of it. Normally I tend not to go hard on that kind of thing because I'm like, I don't like to tell people what to do, but I would really appreciate it if you went and checked out my new Instagram, really old school now, ding, where you can keep up with me if you want to. It's knitting, it's life, it's, you know, bit of everything over there now, but like I said, more on that later. And secondly, thank you to everyone who watched and commented and have reached out to me with your wonderful messages of support over the past few weeks. Been a difficult few weeks, but I'm so happy to say that I am possibly in the best place I've been for a long time, and that's hugely down to your support, so thank you. And then the other thing I wanted to quickly go into, super exciting, because the last few months have been a bit like, I totally missed my 2-year podiversary. It was like 10th, I think 11th or 10th of April that I did my first episode of the Knitting Pickle Podcast. I can't believe I missed it. It's been over 2 years now, which is quite crazy. I feel like I've been on quite a journey. I've changed a lot since then. I actually watched back a few old episodes just to kind of remind myself of what life was like 2 years ago, and it was interesting to watch, slightly embarrassing. But yeah, it's been 2 years of the Knitting Pickle Podcast, and I wanted to celebrate with you guys for that. I don't do giveaways anymore, but I would like to offer you guys a special little discount code on all of my patterns. It's very rare that I do a sale across every pattern ever. And it's also going to be technically my biggest sale ever, but only by 2%. Because it's been 2 years, I wanted to give you guys 22% off all my patterns for 2 weeks. All the twos, 222, lots of twos. Is that a dodge? So yeah, you can get 22% off all of my patterns using the code PICKLE. Why not? And that's on Ravelry and on Instagram. No, it's not on Instagram, it's on Ravelry and it's on my website. Everything will be linked below. I just wanted to share that with you guys to say thank you for being with me for the past 2 years. OMG. That's all the admin. No, it's not. There's one more thing. Things that might look a little bit different because I am filming on my phone. We really are going old school. We're like stripping it right back to how it was day one because I have lost the charger for my camera battery. And I do have one battery, but it's only got half of its life left, and that is not enough to film a podcast. So we're in here today. I watched back a couple of episodes that I filmed on my old phone. I've got quite a better phone since then, but even then the quality was still really good. And the only problem at the time was that the sound was quite echoey when I'd film in my living room. So I've come in here today. It's the room with the most soft furnishings, so the sound should be nice and clear and crisp. And yeah, it is half term. My children are at home, but I've been saving up their screen time for this hour today. So they're both just chilling out, but we will likely get interrupted at some point. And they'll probably go, why is there a plant by the door, Mummy? And there's a plant by the door to fill that space. It looked a bit empty. So let's crack on. Oh man, this is so nice. So yeah, it's been ages. I think the last time I did a sit down format video, again, the kids were at home, so I think it was last half term, so it's definitely been a little bit of a while. So I therefore have quite a lot of stuff to show you, but I'm only just going to kind of briefly show some of it because it was they were whips in the last episode, and they were quite a way through their process. Motorbike, rude. So I'm just going to start with a couple of honourable mentions, just to kind of give you a quick update, show you the finished objects. And they are both, where's the other one? Oh, it's down there. I've got quite a lot of kids stuff today, quite a lot for young Penelope. She's definitely my most knit-worthy person at the moment. But the first is the Sibling cardigan. I can't remember how far I got on this in the last episode, but in the last episode I went very, very in-depth about this design and specifically the yarn. This is the Mendip DK by Marina Skewer, and it's beautiful. This is just the most sunshine happy yellow I've ever seen in my life. It's beautiful quality yarn, and I'm just so pleased with the garment. Penny looks like the cutest little granddad in it. I will put in a picture. And yeah, I'm just really pleased with this design. This is the cardigan version of the Sibling sweater, which I released in February, which is available and you can currently get for 22% off. And one of my friends mentioned that she'd love a cardigan version, and ever since she said it, I got the idea stuck in my head, and I basically cast this on and knit it quite quickly, and just, yeah, absolutely loved it. I have written the pattern and it has had one edit with my editor. However, I have been taking a little bit of a break over the past few weeks, especially when it comes to designing and stuff. I just didn't have the brain space, so I haven't gone back to that edit, but I'm looking forward to getting back to it soon. So I do plan to release this as a pattern. Won't be for a while yet. It will be when it's seasonally appropriate for my hemisphere. But that's how the Sibling cardigan turned out. I'm obsessed with the double knit. Now, this is the problem we have with this phone in this mode. It can struggle with focusing, so I need to remember to cover my face when I'm showing you something. So when my face is covered, I won't talk for those of you who lip read, but I'll give you a proper look now whilst I say nothing. That's the Sibling cardigan. You'll probably see that again in a couple of months' time. The other thing that I finished since the last episode, which I'm briefly going to show you, is another jumper for Penny. This is her marble sweater. Now, it's not actually the marble sweater by Petite Knit because I didn't buy or use the pattern. I freestyled this, but it ended up being exactly the same gauge on exactly the same needles. I was like, I wanted it to look like the marble sweater, but I also knew I didn't need to buy the pattern because I can formulate a top-down kids raglan myself, no worries. And I also did 2x2 rib, which isn't in the marble, and I did a little split hem, which isn't in the marble. I love this. Hang on, let's try again. Love this guy. Honestly, it might be one of the favourite things I've ever made for Penny. It's so lovely. It came about because I bought a random ball of rainbow acrylic yarn from Hobbycraft because I saw the colours and thought it's so Penny, and I liked that it was rainbow but it doesn't have red, so it's kind of more like tie-dye dual tone, especially when it's mild. And I just held it with drops air and a strand of mohair. I think I used Knitting for Olive, and just went for it, and I ended up matching the gradient on the sleeves to the body because I couldn't not. So that did mean I had lots of ends to weave in, and I just kind of like did a couple of rows and then broke the yarn and then found the bit that matched the body, and that left me with this lovely matching sleeve and body. It's quite big. It's definitely going to be more for this winter coming than anytime soon, but obviously it's technically June now, so definitely not seasonally appropriate on that one. Also, Penny has worn it a few times and she struggled a little bit with how fluffy it was. Not like that it irritated her, but like just actual like fluff. She kept like like picking it out of her mouth and stuff. So I think when she's a little bit bigger and it's a little bit less poofy and all up around her, it'll be better. But it's my kind of like rainbow garment, and more on rainbows in a little while. There's actually this episode is going to have to be called something like Rainbow Vibes, or my colour. Oh my god, is that my boiler man? The boiler man's here 2 hours early. Okay, we're back in the room. Boiler man's early, that's fun. But he can fix the boiler, so that's good. So those are my little honourable mentions of things I've finished, but didn't want to go into too much detail in. And now I'm going to go into like the proper good stuff. So I've got 2 official finished objects, a nearly finished object, and 2 whips, and they're like pretty major whips. So yeah, get a drink. While we're on the kids stuff, let's do my latest finished object for Penny. This was a completely 100% spontaneous cast on. Literally the idea struck me, I grabbed the yarn and went for it. And I'm so glad that I did, because it was pure joy from start to finish. And here it is. I'm just going to cover up my face. This I'm kind of coining the Mermaid Rainbow Dreams tea. It doesn't really have a name. I don't know if I'll be releasing it. Didn't really have any plans to. I might do. I'm literally not tying myself to anything at the moment. But it was super fun to work on, and really quite simple. You could achieve the look very easily with the Strange Brew recipe from Tin Can Knits. That's something before I started designing that I used quite a lot, and I found it very useful. It's only for round neck yokes, but you can do so much with it. Doesn't necessarily have to be colour work. You can do lace work, you can do just plain. It talks about just like round shaping, and then also wedge shaping, and top up, bottom up, top down, everything. So you could use that recipe and insert this colour work pattern if you wanted to. It's just a really simple like scallop. If I don't go forward with this as a design that I might release, then I'll draw up the colour work pattern and put it on my website or something like that. But yeah, I was so pleased with it, and I decided to make it like a little t-shirt because I had only 2 balls of the white yarn. The white yarn is Sandnes Garn Merino, and it was left over from my other finished object that I'm going to show you in a minute. I thought, well, I've got 2 balls of it. I hate having 2 balls of things. They just sit in my stash for ages. I'm not really much of a hat knitter. So I was like, I just want to get them done. So let's do a short sleeve t-shirt, but I need to like put something else in there. I'm obviously having a little bit of a stripy moment this year. It's definitely the year of stripes for me. I'm all about stripes, as are a lot of people, which is lovely. But I wanted to mix it up a bit. So I thought, let's go for this scallopy pattern. And kind of initially, I was thinking more of like petals. And when I started it, I wasn't planning rainbows. I was thinking of just doing pink and yellows in different hand dyes all the way through, because my daughter's favourite colours at the moment are pink and yellow. But as I was going through my stash, I was just like, I think it would be so beautiful as another kind of little rainbow moment. So I delve into my stash of hand dyed mini skeins and scraps. And now when I say my stash, that feels quite wrong, because I was recently donated a lot of that's the boiler man, can you hear him? I was recently donated a lot of lovely gorgeous scraps and stash yarn from a couple of friends on Instagram towards my blanket, and I was just like overwhelmed by all the beautiful donations that I ended up using some of it in a little t-shirt for Penny as well. I'm really glad I did, because in my blanket they look very different when they're just stuck in it, and I really enjoyed seeing how they looked in just that kind of plain texture. I did have a little bit of a boo-boo with this one. Originally, this stripe was purple. It was a different one, but I realised because once I'd split, I did to about here, and then I literally did like 6 rounds on the sleeve, not even that, 4 rounds, and then did the rib so that I knew exactly how much I had left to finish the body. And then when I went back to the body, I forgot to change my needle size, so I did like all of this to about here in the wrong needle size, and you could really tell. Also, the purple that I used was quite flat. All of these colours have got like they've got their base colour, but they've got a very clear speckle to them. This will be the perfect moment for some B-roll. But the purple was just coming up very flat. So in the end, I used 1 strand of what I originally used and found another strand that was speckly. This is DK weight, by the way. The merino is DK weight, and I used 2 strands of fingering held together for the colourful stripes. And it just looks a lot more cohesive. There's still not as many speckles as I would like, and there's kind of a few more on the back. But overall, I think it's quite cohesive, and I think a really beautiful way to kind of have fun with mini skeins and scraps. And Penny absolutely loves it. My arm's getting tired now. It's a bit too big, and I could have done with maybe some more short rows in the back. That's a way it's different from the Strange Brew actually. In the Strange Brew, because it's all about like colour pattern yolks and stuff, the short rows are at this point, they're underneath the colourwork yoke, so you don't have a big gap here. But I didn't want a big gap between my stripes here, so I put my short rows up here, and I just did a few, and I feel like I could have done some more. Like, you can see that it's higher at the back, but when Penny actually wears it, it could do with being a bit higher in the back. But I think that's also because it's a little bit big for her. It's definitely quite long. Kids' lengths are like tricky, and especially for P, because she's quite short. Like, she definitely could have got away with just going to blue and then having the rib, but I wanted the full rainbow, so this is probably going to be good for her for spring next year, and she can even wear it in the winter with a little cardigan over, because it is merino. It's like super warm. It's not the most summery garments, but on cooler summer days with a little pair of shorts, I think it could be really cute. But I've not let her wear it yet. She's tried it on, but I've not actually let her wear it because I wanted it to be beautiful for the podcast. There we go, that's my first finished object. I made this quite quickly, a couple of days actually. Kids' garments knit up so quickly, especially at DK weight, and it's just, yeah, I loved every moment of it. And it was a real kind of, it was eye-opening because it had been so long since I had just like recklessly cast something on. Like, it's been so long since like I've really allowed myself to do that. More on that later. So yeah, it was just lovely. It was just such a fun project. My second finished object, technically I didn't knit. Well, yeah, actually I didn't knit. I knit a tiny bit of it, but none of the credit for this needs to go to me, apart from the fact that I designed it. So last time I podcasted, last time I did a podcast, I showed you the Sibling sweater, my size, which is the adult version of a kid's sweater that I have published. And I had, I can't remember if in the last episode I'd ripped it out or not. But yeah, basically I had a real issue with the shoulder shaping and how it felt, and I had to rip my sample pretty much back. I'd done half the body, full sleeve, had started the second sleeve, and it just wasn't right. And it killed the project for me completely. I was also feeling quite overwhelmed by the kind of editing, grading process of everything, and I just couldn't. Fortunately, I have the world's loveliest sample knitter at my disposal. And as you can see, we have a full sample of the Sibling sweater. Yay! This was made by lovely Leah, known as Leah Amber Knits on Instagram. She also designs. She's been quite prolific recently in her designs. Actually, she got a couple of sweaters. I think she's about to, or just has released a summer tee that I saw in person actually the other day, because my friend tested it for her, and it's beautiful, lovely finishes on the edges. So go and check out Leah as well. And she sample knit this for me because I just couldn't. I just absolutely couldn't. And she did such a beautiful job and I'm really pleased with it. The fit is like spot on. I think I could have done with a little bit more length in the body, but that is 100% me. That's how I wrote it, so that's how she knit it. And I think if I had knit it myself, I probably would have put one more stripe repeat in there. It's like, I'm wearing my joggers. You can see it's like right at my waist, so like right at my waist. So when I'm wearing like the perfect high-waisted jeans, like it's fine, but anything slightly lower than that and I kind of feel a little bit exposed in my sides. So I am tempted to go back and lengthen it a little bit, but also don't think I can be bothered. Also, I think I would still like to make another sample of this because I'd like to make it in the size up, just because I love the fit of this. It feels quite sporty, quite sweatshirt, quite casual, and I love that. But I would also like to see it a little bit more oversized because the kids one is quite oversized intentionally. The you know, the positive ease and everything is worked into the grading, and I'd like to see that on me as well. So I might knit it for myself again in a size up, we'll see. But the main issue I had at the beginning was the shoulder shaping and how it was feeling on my body. So the kind of main design feature of the Sibling sweater that makes it not just another stripy jumper is the shoulder shaping. Got this kind of little increasing moment where the stripes go across and then you've got the stripes here and the stripes here, and it's just love it. It's just like such a fun little moment where some really simple techniques put together in a certain way come together to make something really beautiful and different, and I'm really proud of it and I love it. However, in my sample I was extremely aware of the pickup here, where you pick up the stitches for the front section from the back section. It was incredibly tight. It was quite uncomfortable. I was very conscious of it, and there was like very little stretch in this seam here, which was also really pulling the sleeve up and making like a point like that. It wasn't so like smooth, and there obviously still a little bit of a bit here, but it was quite extreme, and the main thing about it was uncomfortable. And I just couldn't continue with it. So I switched things up a little bit. I changed the pickup rate at the sleeves, hoping that would make things better, and it has. I did have a little bit of a panic when I first got the sample back. I put it on, I wore it out, and I was like, it's not as bad as it was before, but I can feel the shoulder seam. And I just realised that my sleeves were a bit too short. So because they were slightly too short, for me personally, I was constantly trying to like pull them down, which was then pulling on the shoulder seam and making me conscious of it. So I ripped back the cuff, which was heartbreaking because Leah did the most beautiful Italian bind off, so gorgeous. And I just added 2 more stripe repeats, and now I have the most perfect length sleeve. I'm very picky about the length of my sleeves because of my sensory needs. I cannot stand any kind of wrist showing. I either need to have full length or short, no mid-length at all in any situation. Really sets me off. So just adding that little bit of extra length just made the whole thing much more comfortable and wearable. The yarn is the same as Penny's Mermaid tee. It's the Sandnes Garn Merino, and I took a real risk with it because I'd never knit with it before and sent it straight off to Leah to use, and it's a superwash. So it was risky, but we were both incredibly surprised by how lovely it is and how it barely grew. I don't think it grew at all. In actual fact, I think Leah had to block it out a little bit actually when she was blocking it. Obviously when she was blocking it, because it just didn't do that big massive growing thing that a lot of superwash yarns do. It also doesn't have that kind of stripy pinstripe vibe. That happens with a lot of superwash merinos, and it's more because of the spin or the twist of the yarn. You end up basically one leg of your stitch ends up being a little bit tighter than the other, and it's not because of your tension or the way that you knit, it's because of the twist in the yarn, and it can look a little bit stripy. I find you get that with drops merino, You get it with the Rico Superwash Merino as well, and I never like it. It just doesn't feel right to me, but you don't get this at all with this, and it's lovely. I think it's a really good price point. The colour range is quite vast. The reason I chose it in the first place was because of the colour. I really wanted a lilac stripe, and that's exactly what I got. The white is quite white. It's a little bit whiter than I would normally go for, but I like it. I think it works. It feels fresh. It feels summer. Even though it's like May, June now, I've had some quite warm weather. I've worn it quite a lot. It's nice to just chuck on with a pair of light coloured jeans, and you, on like a cooler summer day, and you just kind of still get that nice beachy summery vibes, but you're warm because this is the UK and you just never know. So there you go. That's the Sibling sweater. It has, my version has a split hem, which you would have seen, but the pattern has a split hem and a normal hem. The pattern, so obviously it's been sample knit, so the pattern is complete. However, because Leah's incredible, she's sample knit it and basically pre-test knit it as well, because it hasn't gone to test yet. And she found a number of kind of like things that needed clarifying or needed changing, tweaking slightly, which was amazing. But because of how this sample has worked out, I have now realised that I need to go back into the pattern and change the lengths. I need to change the lengths of the sleeves, which means I need to regrade them because the decreases are evenly spread all the way down the sleeve. And it's fine to add like a little extra bit on. It doesn't change the fit or the look of the sleeve at all. But if you ended up having to add more than 2 stripes on, you'd kind of have this like nicely fitted like wedge shaped sleeve and then like a long thin bit, which might be a bit odd. So I need to go and address the sleeve decreases again. Also, my editor did say that she felt the cuff sizes were a little bit too big in the bigger sizes, so I need to address that as well. I thought it would be all right, but I also imagined the cuff to be quite a bit bigger. It's really strange, and I've had a similar thing with a whip that I'm about to show you. Like in my head when I wrote it and I like obviously figured out how big it's going to be, it felt bigger, but in reality it's kind of more fitted. I did kind of want a slightly bigger, looser cuff, but this is what my grading has come out at, and you know what, I'm fine with it. I'm not going to like rip back 2 whole sleeves and do them again. I like this vibe, and like I said, if I go up a size to get a little bit more ease, I'll also get more ease in the sleeve, which might be slightly closer to the fit that I was originally imagining. But this is what it's like designing. Quite often, like sometimes things go exactly how you imagine them. Sometimes they evolve and they change and you think you've got a really clear idea, but something doesn't quite happen, but you end up liking it. And it's just, it's like a, oh, I can't believe I'm about to say this. It's like a flow. But it's easier to go with it than fight against it, is what I've learned. So I do need to have a little bit of work on this pattern still. When that will happen, I'm not too sure. Like I said, I've taken a little bit of a break from designing at the moment. Like I am still designing, but I'm not putting any pressure on myself to release anything at a certain point. And again, I'll go into that more later on. But yeah, it's good. I can feel myself wanting to go back into this document now. For a long time, I just couldn't even look at my laptop. But now I'm kind of like, yeah, I think I'm ready to get my head back in the numbers. So when the time is right, this will continue. Test knit wise, it's going to be a private test knit. I just can't do it. I know I said that I would do a public test knit, but I can't handle the anxiety of it. If I can't fill all the spots, then I may call for a couple of particular sizes, because it's important to me that every size is tested. And obviously I have a testing pool, but it might not be that everyone is into this design or has the time to test knit it or wants to. So yeah, there might be a small public call depending on how that goes, but overall it's going to be a private closed group again, just to protect the old mental health. You know, we love to talk about that on this channel. But I'm going to take it off because I'm getting a bit warm. I just had that, am I filming fear? This like little camera setup I've got going on. You're like, obviously I'm not using my forward facing camera because then the quality is less, so you're in front of a big mirror so I can see what I'm saying and what I'm doing. So right, let's move into whips. I feel like in these videos, like I always find the whips the most exciting bit because there's like a chance of something like new, and everything you're about to see is new. You've seen one of them, I shared one of them in my latest vlog. I did a weekend vlog and I went more into detail there, but I'm not showing it on a podcast. I know that not everyone watches the vlogs. So I've got some juicy content for you here. First of all, I'm going to show you my nearly finished object because it's my newest cast on and I'm obsessed with it and I love it and I'm nearly finished it and I can't wait to show you. This project goes against pretty much everything I would ever say about myself and my style and my sensory needs. But I just felt the urge to make these and I'm really glad I did. Again, there's that reckless casting on, that dopamine rush, that quick gratification. I think it's because I've got quite a lot of big projects, like long-term projects, no like quick like knits, and I just needed something quick and satisfying. So I mean, what better for quick and satisfying other than a mermaid t-shirt for your daughter? The only other option to fulfill those needs is a Scrappy sock. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed. I cast this on not yesterday, the day before, and I completed this first sock in less than 24 hours. I was obsessed. Started at the cuff and I did it all in one tube down to the toe, and I did that in about 8 hours over one day. And then the next day I picked it up straight away in the morning and added my toe, and then I cut in an afterthought heel. And then yesterday afternoon I cast on the second sock, and look, this is my last stripe before the toe. So this is going to be done by the end of the day. This is the first pair of socks I have finished in years. Literally years. I have quite a lot. Yes, baby?
What?
I told you. Hello?
How did you get that right here?
I moved it in here so I could see. You want to come and say hi? Come here. It's funny because you can't really see. You can kind of see. There she is. There's my little princess.
Stand up.
What?
Ah.
How are you doing, baby girl?
Good.
Happy?
Don't get shy.
Are you ready for your yogurt? Have you had it yet?
I finished all my puffs.
I can see your dress is all orange. You're about to make me all orange, aren't you?
Bloop, bloop, blop, blop, blop.
Ridiculous creature. I can't remember what I was saying. Yeah, I was basically saying like how much I'm obsessed with these socks and how much fun I am having. These came about because I know I mentioned my box of scraps, which I will show you in a minute. Obviously I've been using them mainly for my blanket, but then I've got scraps from the Scrappy blanket that are too small to go into the blanket but feel too big for my magic knot ball. I was kind of left with this, what do I do with these? And I was like, yeah, Scrappy socks. And I had a few colours as well that didn't really like work for my blanket, like this like crazy cuff colour, which is like neon and fluorescent pink and green and amazing, just wouldn't have worked for my blanket, but like I really wanted to see what it would look like knit up. Cinematic mode hates these socks. I'll do b-roll for that. So yeah, basically what I did is I took all the little nuggets that I had left and then I wound them again, but I split them into two as identical weight balls as I could, and then I took all the slightly heavier ones and put them aside and started with my slightly lighter ones. Therefore I knew that however many rows I do in my first sock I could match in the second sock, though that didn't actually work out in some cases, but it doesn't matter because it's just a Scrappy sock. And I started with this because I had the most of this and I wanted to do a nice long cuff. I did an old Norwegian cast on, which is my favourite cast on for socks because it's like super stretchy and lovely and I think it looks really nice. And I did a 2x2 cuff. Don't know why, just felt like it. I feel like I'm like living my best crazy sock lady life here with my 2x2 cuff. Oh, I just needed a little colour pop at the top and I would have... Hello? Oh yeah, boiler fixed. Boiler man gone. Excellent. So, yes. What was I saying? So yeah, I would split everything into 2 little balls and then just knit for as long as I could and then change, basically. I did an afterthought heel because for me, I don't know what it is, but stopping to do a heel, it always makes a sock feel quite laborious for me. And even though I know overall I'll spend exactly the same amount of time, whether I do the heel afterwards or during, I just feel like I really struggle to cast on that second sock because it's like the heel fear. Like, I'm quite lucky that my foot is like fine with any kind of heel construction. It's usually dictated by the pattern or what mood I'm in. But then again, I haven't really knit many socks recently. I have done a few, but again, I haven't done a second one. And I've now realised that the 2 socks that I've got that need a second sock, I can't remember what needle size I used. Take notes, Laura. So yeah, I just decided to just keep going and going and going until it felt about right. And then I did a normal wedge toe. And then that also meant I could just like slip the sock onto my foot and see where the heel would naturally be. And it happened to be in between 2 colours, which was very, very satisfying for me. And then I just did an afterthought heel, which I really enjoy doing because I get almost like a sick satisfaction from cutting my knitting. I have a tutorial actually that I made about an afterthought heel and a peasant afterthought heel, which is like a pre-planned afterthought. But I prefer just just stick it in wherever you feel like it. I didn't add any extra rows before decreasing. I just did 2 rows and then started decreasing in exactly the same way as I do the toe, which is probably another reason I like it this way, because it's like I don't have to think about it, I just instinctively know what I'm doing. And I didn't add any extra rows because if anything, this sock is a little bit big. I used a 2.5 millimeter needle because that's just what I had available. I like to use the Addy Sock Wonder 9-inch circulars, and that's because I'm not going to be able to show you this with this autofocus, but one is longer than the other. When you have 2 little tiny ones like you do with like Chalgu sock needles, it just doesn't work for my hands. My hands get very sore very quickly and I just don't enjoy using them. But when you've got that one, your right side needle, the one you're actually like knitting with, is that bit longer, I just find it so much more comfortable and I can just mindlessly like go. But from what I could see, Addy don't do it in a 2.25, which is weird because they're a sock needle, so you think there'd be a 2mm and a 2.25, but from what I could see last time I checked, they didn't do them, so I didn't have one. My friend recently let me know that Knit Pro do the same style needle with the one longer, one shorter, and they have a 2.25, so I've got one of those on the way, coming in the post. So next time I do a scrappy sock, which I imagine I will do, I'm going to go down a needle size, and then I will add more rows into the heel to kind of accommodate for that. So because it is just a little bit baggy around like above my ankle, like it's perfect on the leg, it's fine on the foot. I probably could have done with a few less stitches on the foot. So I'm just getting closer to my ideal sock. I didn't follow a pattern for these. I know I've made enough socks to not need to follow a pattern for a vanilla sock, but I'm still just like getting to know my foot. So I think getting to know my foot, the next thing I'm going to try is a smaller needle, and then it might need to be that I need a few decreases maybe right after the cuff, because I hate a tight cuff. It triggers me in so many ways. So a lot of people have said to decrease immediately after the cuff, or decrease down the back for a slimmer ankle and then increase again after the heel, all this kind of stuff. I think in general a heel flap and gusset is probably the best fitting heel for me really, but I find the decreasing so boring. And I don't particularly like the look of them. I only like a heel flap and gusset when the whole sock is the same colour. Maybe like contrasting toe or cuff, but I'm not so keen on the contrast. The only heel I haven't tried is a Go Day heel, which is like a heel flap and gusset, but it's toe up. and I keep meaning to try one of those because a lot of people go on about them. I don't like a German short row heel because I get holes. I do like a shadow wrap heel. I feel they're really good for like if you're doing like a colour work sock or something like that and putting it in. And I do like a toe up sock, so maybe I'll try the Go Day heel next. I'm pretty sure that Jules of So Sweet Violet has a toe up Go Day heel sock pattern, which I'll probably try. And do you know what? I'm pretty sure I bought it as well. I'm pretty sure I've already got it. And I mentioned her because she was one of the lovely people who donated some yarn to my stash, because turns out knitting a scrappy blanket needs a lot of yarn, and I massively underestimated how much I need. And I just had very little scraps, like mini skeins wasn't something I really bought. The only mini skeins I have are from my advent calendar last year, which was the Woolly Mammoth Fibres advent calendar, and that's like a natural sock that I didn't want to use in my blanket because it's a blanket for Penny. I wanted to be able to just chuck it in the wash if it needed to. So yes, Jules donated to the pot, and I believe quite a few of these are hers, I believe actually. This one definitely is because it was already like wound up in a little ball. But yeah, there's a lovely mix. So, okay, that's my socks. I'm going to stop banging on about the socks and we'll have a little bit more scrappy chat after the next whip. But let's mix it up a little bit. Let's go to a garment. And it's a really exciting garment. So if you watched my last video where it's kind of like a knit and chat, and I talk about what happened with my Instagram, where I'm at in my mental health, all that kind of stuff. I was working on a project, new design, and I'd only done like a bit of the back, a bit of the front, and I was adding the collar at the time. But it's since progressed quite drastically. This is a new design, and it's a very exciting design because it's a collaboration with a yarn brand who have been very special to me for like since day one, since I started knitting, and it's John Arbon. I still like, it's like one of those moments, like it's John Arbon, man, like come on. So John Arbon is a British yarn producer based in Devon, right close to where my in-laws live, where I go all the time. They used to have a shop down there, which I went to when I was a new knitter and was just like, oh my gosh, but they don't have the shop anymore. And they contacted me a while ago and asked me if I wanted to try their new yarn that they were about to release. It's the Yarnadelic worsted weight, and they asked if I wanted to try some samples, which I did, and it's beautiful. I would really still like to make a garment in that. I think I'm finding myself craving something slightly heavier weight, so I'm going to keep that in mind. But when I was talking to them, I was like, oh, I've just done a swatch in your apple door DK actually. Would you like to see it? And I showed them a picture of the swatch, and they offered to sponsor the yarn for the design, which is incredible because Appledore is such a special yarn, and I just feel so honoured that I've been able to work with it because it's just so gorgeous. Oh my gosh. Here's a ball of what I've got left of my current skein, and I'm definitely going to do B-roll with this because capturing the colour, the beauty of this yarn. Actually, oh no, I made a reel. Have I still got that reel? I don't know. I think I've got the footage from that reel, like showcasing this yarn, and you can really see just how beautiful it is, but I can't now download that reel because I no longer have access to that Instagram account. But I might have the original footage, in which case I will insert that or take some new stuff. But one of the beautiful things about John Arbon yarn is that to create their colourways, they have different coloured fibres or tops, and then they blend them together and then spin them. So it's not like they've got a natural coloured yarn that they then dye different colours. It's all blended within the fibre. So they dye the fibre and then blend them, and it's just like painting. And you do get some more solid colours, but you also get these magical yarns where you can see all the different colours when you look really closely. But then when you kind of look further away, it kind of like blends into one colour, and oh, it's just stunning. I'm just going to show you because I'm so proud of it. Here she is. Here is this sweater. It doesn't have a name yet, but it has a sleeve, and it has this gorgeous kind of like crosshatch sweater. Maybe. It has this lovely cabled, cross-hatched, smocked, wrapped stitch vibe on the front, but I didn't do it on the back, and I'm really glad I didn't do it on the back. For a number of reasons. Let's pop it on. When I was working on it in my knit and chat, I wasn't sure what direction I was going to go with the collar, whether I was going to do a folded collar or a funnel collar. And pretty much everybody said funnel collar, and you were all right. I think it's just the most perfect. I think folded collar would, you know, be lovely, and I could still go back and just, you know, make that happen. But there's just something about this kind of in-between length, not a turtleneck. Like, it's kind of mock neck, but for me it's kind of more funnel neck. It just suits the design. It just balances. It just balances a little bit. So now I've got it on, let's talk a little bit more about the yarn whilst we're in yarn mode. So this is the colourway Quench, and it's basically like the most grown-up unicorn rainbow yarn without being like rainbow yarn. Like, it's like magical. It's so deceptive. Like, you can see here that like it kind of just looks like a slightly pink, greyish, neutral, but kind of interesting. You're kind of not quite sure what colour it is, but the overall vibe is neutral, which I love. It's my comfort zone. I love a neutral. But when you get close up, you can see all the different colours. This is basically made up of, now I can't confirm this, but from what I can see, it is bright yellow, bright blue, bright pink, like CMYK, like cyan, magenta, yellow, like those, that kind of print colours, and white, I think, all blended together. And oh man, it's just so magical, and it's such a dream to work with. So when I saw it, I wanted to create a design that really let the yarn really sing and feature and didn't detract, but I also wanted something interesting and something slightly different. And I did quite a few different swatches. I did like a couple of ribbed swatches, and it didn't work. It completely detracted from the design, from the yarn. But I found this kind of idea just worked because you still get mostly stockinette, but you just have this little moment of textural interest. And it's fun to do, it's simple to do, it looks complicated, it's impactful, but it's so simple. Like, you do the repeat once and it's committed to memory. I love doing these little smocked stitches here. I find it so satisfying, like wrapping the yarn around, and you only have to do it every now and then. It doesn't feel laborious. It's like more enjoyable than a bobble. It's just, yeah, lovely. And I decided not to put it on the back for two main reasons. I'll just show you the back and you can see. It's a drop shoulder construction. I think every sweater I've done this year has been drop shoulder. I'm having a drop shoulder moment. I just love them and they suit me. But I am getting a little bit bored of the drop shoulder now, so I'm looking forward to a different construction. But yeah, it's a drop shoulder, it's got short row shaping, and the back is just completely plain stockinette. And there are, so like I said, there are two reasons. I feel like I'm talking really, really, really fast. It's because I'm really excited about this design. The reason I decided not to put the pattern on the back was, one, knitting experience. This is lovely and fun, but all over would have made it somewhat laborious, I think, because there's no, like, every other round is knit. So when you're working flat, obviously you're purling, but once you join in the round, every other row is knit, but then every other row is cable, and it's quite, that can kind of get a little bit laborious. So by not having it on the back, you're actually only working the cable pattern for 25% of the body. So for half a round, every other round. So you've got like 1.5 rounds of just knitting, which feels so fast and so quick, and just half a round of the cable. And it just keeps that balance in the enjoyable. And of course the sleeve, oh my gosh, I did the sleeve in like 2 days. So quick and so pleasurable. I'm really glad I did it like halfway through the body because it really kept the pace going. I also did it halfway through the body because I wanted to get both sleeves done and then see how much yarn I had left over for the body, because I was a little bit unsure. I'm going to have more than enough. This is like, this sleeve took about 70 grams, I think, overall. And yeah, it's just really, really nice. I'm so proud of this sleeve. Honestly, the shaping is like perfection, if I do say so myself. It's like slightly loose, not tight, but not oversized. And I was talking about oversized cuffs earlier. I got kind of a bit closer to my kind of oversized cuff dreams. You can see that it's bigger. Sorry, my face. You can see that it's bigger here. It's not tight to the wrist, it's loose, but it's not also like huge, it's not hanging down. But I did have to block out my cuff quite a lot. I just steamed blocked this so far, just so I can keep on top of the fit and how it looks, but don't have to wait for it to dry every bloody time. But I did quite heavily steam the cuff, and then I pinned it out so it doesn't like pinch in at all. I did go down a couple of needle sizes because the rib looked a little bit loose and sloppy if I didn't go down needle sizes, but I didn't want that pinching in effect, and I think I've managed to achieve that with the quite heavy blocking there. Obviously with wear as well, it'll loosen up and stuff. So yeah, the first reason I didn't put it on the back was because of knitter experience, and the second reason was yarn consumption. When you cable, your fabric tightens, so you need more stitches than you would for stockinette. So that presented a fun little grading moment. I basically had to take the gauge for the cable pattern and the back pattern and grade the front and the back differently. So there are more stitches in the front half than there are in the back, but they are the same width. Like, that was some maths. That was a new challenge, but it was fine. It's actually quite simple. Just had to make sure that I was being nice and accurate. But because you have more stitches in the front panel, and also because of the smocked stitches, the wrapped stitches, that uses quite a lot of yarn. And this yarn is on the higher end of the cost spectrum. I know it's different for everybody, but I would say in general, this is it's a higher priced yarn, and I was quite conscious of that. And I just thought, look, we hardly see the back. We don't really need to see the back. Do we really need all this on the back when it's going to take up so much more yarn? And I'm really glad I didn't, because I think I've got 5, yeah, this is going to be under 5 skeins of this, I think. So whereas I think if I had done the smocking and all the pattern on the back, we would have been like 6, and that would have been quite an expensive garment at that point. But personally, for me, it's worth every penny. This yarn is like nothing else I've ever worked with. It's stunning. It feels so special, not just to work with, but to wear. I feel extra connected to British wool because obviously I'm British, so it feels nice to be wearing something that's like a product of my country, but also knowing like the artisan knowledge and craft that goes into this yarn, that adds to the value of it for me. It's not just about like making a garment for the least money possible, it's about just the provenance of it as well, and that's something that I really enjoy being able to take into consideration when I'm choosing my yarns and what I'm working with. Obviously it's not something that's possible for everyone, and that's absolutely fine. There's no yarn snobbery here. I fully believe that everyone should just knit with what works for them and their project and their budget and their needs, and like, it's fine. Full transparency here, when I first received it, I was a little bit like, oh. I was quite surprised at the texture of the yarn. It's definitely a rustic yarn. It's definitely a more traditional yarn. It's not merino. I can't remember what the actual blend is, and my phone's right there and I haven't got a skein near me. But I'm pretty sure it's like a 50-50 blend. I'll put it on the screen or in the show notes, one of the two. But it's definitely wool. It's not super soft, super slick merino. And it feels quite like, it's almost like twiney, like twine when you first kind of experience the yarn. And the difference in this yarn from blocking and like unblocked is shocking. I put it on my Instagram stories the other day. I'll download it. I'll put the picture in of the Like I'd like blocked half the back and knit half the back, and you could really see the difference. It's crazy. It transforms. It's just another way in which this yarn is magical. And I was a little bit like, oh gosh, what have I done here? I don't think I like this yarn when I first got it. But as soon as I swatched with it and I realised how much it transforms, I was like so excited to work with it. You hear a lot of people talking about how a yarn will bloom, and this definitely blooms to the point where it feels like when you're working it, it feels twiny and sparse and kind of strange and a little bit gappy, and it all looks uneven. But as soon as you block it, all those gaps are like filled in. The strand of yarn like poofs and relaxes and takes up space and evens out and just creates this really beautiful, uniform, soft, to me, it's soft enough that I can have it directly next to my neck. Obviously, everyone's like levels are different, and this might not be for you, in which case I'd probably say do a more traditional neckline. Somebody in the comments of the last video also said that they had done a cowl with this yarn, but they'd lined the cowl with the John Arbon Alpaca Supreme, which I happen to have in stash in a very, very similar colour. So I think I'm also going to experiment with doing like a little alpaca lining, which I think would be so fun. One, for extra warmth, and two, to make it a little bit softer on the neck, though it doesn't personally bother me. It's also a really, really light fabric. It feels more like a fingering weight sweater than a DK weight sweater. Honestly, I use a 4mm needle, so to me it is a DK, but it's so light and airy and thin and drapey and fine. Honestly, it feels like a fingering weight sweater. Though I've never made a fingering weight sweater, but I made a child's fingering weight sweater. And it just, compared to this, which is also DK weight, knit on the same millimeter needles, this is so much like heavier feeling, like to hold and to wear, and thicker. It's crazy that these are exactly the same weight. Excuse me. It's crazy that these are exactly the same weight on the same needle, but feel so different. I cannot wait for this to be finished. I've been enjoying every single second of it. I do have a little bit of a deadline on this one, but it's completely self-imposed. Another way in which John Arbon are amazing. Once I posted my video about losing my Instagram and how I was feeling and the pressure and the duty of designing and stuff, they went out of their way to message me saying, saw your video, we're so glad you're enjoying the yarn, it's brilliant to see the process of the design and everything, but please, no pressure from us, take your time whenever it's ready, like don't force it. And it was really good to hear, because I was feeling some self-imposed pressure, and like they sent me this yarn last year. I did tell them at the time that it wouldn't be something I'd work with until 2023, but I was definitely feeling an internal pressure to get this done like as soon as possible, like, and it was just great to hear that from them, and just so wonderful. And it did take the pressure off a little bit, which was lovely, because once that pressure's lifted, it just makes me want to work on things. Like the moment I give myself permission not to do something, I magically find the motivation to do it. But for as long as I'm saying I should be doing this, guess what? Don't want to do it. Shocking. The self-imposed deadline for this is the 16th of June, which is in 2 weeks' time, and I definitely think it's doable. The sleeve is like 2 or 3 days, and the rest of the body isn't going to take that long at all, honestly. And I think when I finish my socks, I'm going to go back to this, because these were like a little break from this. I think I needed that quick instant satisfaction, a little bit of like bright colour therapy. And as soon as those are done, I'm going to go back to this. And on the 16th of June, I'm going to the John Arbon Mill Open Weekend, and I'm so excited because I've always wanted to go. They emailed me a couple of months ago and was like, would you like to come to the tour? Would you like to come and see a talk? And all this kind of stuff. I was like, yes, please, yes, please, yes, please. Fortunately, my in-laws live really quite close, so I can go and stay with them. I have a couple of knitty friends who are also going, who I'll get to see when I'm there. And I'm just so, so excited to see what actually happens in a mill, in a real life working mill. Their machinery is all like crazy old stuff that they've found and they've refurbished, and it just looks amazing. They've got a lot of videos on their YouTube about it, but I'm so excited to see it in real life, and it's something I've always wanted to do, so I'm really excited. I'm gonna film, I'm gonna vlog the weekend, and I'm also going to a talk about bespoke yarn with, there's a couple of people. There's Marina Skewer, who I'm very excited to meet, daughter of a shepherd, and Garthanaut as well. And I'm just excited to learn more about yarn. I've kind of had little like yearly goals for myself over the past few years. I think the first year was my first year of podcasting. My goal was, at the time I called it selfish knitting, though I don't call it that anymore, but I had very much got caught up in the knitting for other people and not myself, and I just wanted to take a year to just really discover what it was that I loved for myself. And that was a brilliant year. I made so many things that I don't wear, but I learned so much about myself in that year. Last year was the year of Penrose Knits and focusing on the designing and whether I wanted to really pursue this as a business and everything. And again, I learned a lot from that year, more on that later. But this year I really wanted to focus more on yarn. Yes, baby? I'm in my bedroom. What's up? You thought I'd left without you? Why would I do that?
Because when you was left without me yesterday, and then I cried about you.
But Daddy was here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't leave you on your own, sweetie.
What?
I would never leave you on your own. You're a cheeky monkey.
Cheeky daddy.
Cheeky. Yeah, I decided that I wanted this year to learn more about yarn. I wanted to expand my yarn horizons. I wanted to use more British yarn, more bespoke yarn.
I was jumping in magic paddles like Peppa.
Yeah.
And George did
more
some
small
mine
businesses,
in her
and
bucket.
so far I've done that, and I've had
She
some.
was just sticking it some more on the back, and then there was a flower in the ground.
Wow.
She did so much, like a big muddy tower, and then it's bigger, like a tower.
Wow. Cool
Right.
story, bro.
Look, I can actually stretch my hand.
Wow. So tall.
You can be my sweetie.
I can be your sweetie, but you're my sweetie.
No, tell you I'm sweetie.
Okay.
Sweetie?
Yes.
Look at this. It's us.
It is us. Right then, you. Off you pop. I'm nearly done, okay? I love it when she calls me sweetie. So yeah, I'm looking forward to going to that talk and learning more about yarn and the production of yarn and what it's like to be a small yarn producer, and I just want all the knowledge. So that is my other whip. I'm going to take it off because I'm getting a bit warm. Oh, it's just so gorgeous. Just that rainbow, OMG. And let's go on to my final whip, and it's a big one, like in every way, oh my gosh, possible, like size and importance, I don't know, probably not, it's not that important, it's just a blanket. So if you had watched my latest vlog, you would have seen me working on this blanket. This was a direct reaction of me being overwhelmed in life, overwhelmed in knitting, overwhelmed in designing, just all the overwhelm, and I just couldn't function anymore. And I wanted something that was repetitive, satisfying, beautiful, functional, and most importantly, not a garment. I was garmented out at the time, and I just wanted to just knit and not, you know, think about it too deeply. And I started by casting on a prism prism blanket by Pearl Soho. However, I didn't really like the way that it was constructed, and the triangles were too big and they weren't satisfying. They felt like a bit of a slog. I think the actual design itself is stunning, like looking at the finished blanket, amazing, but it just wasn't hitting my needs. But it did greatly inspire what I ended up doing, because I loved the look of the triangles, but I wanted them to be smaller and I wanted the construction to be more satisfying. So I did my own, and I'm not going to be able to show you all of it, but here it is. Ugh. Is that in the shot? It's like, yeah, it looks huge. It looks so big, and it's definitely baby blanket. We're at 30 squares now, and it's 5 by 6. So it's currently a rectangle, but it goes from rectangle, square, because of the way I'm constructing it. And it's definitely like decent sized baby blanket, little mini lap blanket, child's blanket kind of thing. And when I got to that point, I was like, oh, this is it. This feels really good. It feels really big. Maybe it's time. The intended place for this is my daughter's bedroom. Yes, Penny now has a bedroom. She's been sharing with Jeff her whole life, or sharing with us and then sharing with Jeff. And we finally decided to clear out what was the office, which was basically my dumping ground and yarn storage, and it was just awful. Cleared it all out, and I spent the first week of my kind of Instagram hiatus decorating that room, and I love it. I have actually got some proper footage of it, of me decorating and doing bits and pieces in there, which I might insert in here as B-roll, because I'm so proud of it. It's the like little girl's room of my dreams, but I know it's the little girl's room of Penny's dreams as well, because I asked her what she wanted. She said pink and yellow rainbows, and that's what we went with, and I love it. Like, I love being in there. It's always tidy because I can't stand it being messy. A bit like this room, since I decorated in here, it's like just get untidy, but not for long. I can't go to bed with it untidy, which is like a big thing for me. She says something in the giant pile of washing in the corner, which I moved out of shot. But yeah, this is for Penny's room, and she has a rug in there, which is kind of like, looks like a quilt, but it's a rug, and it's kind of got these bright like pink, yellow, greens in it, and a neutral background, and it massively inspired this blanket. I wanted to use like hand-dyed mini skeins and scraps, because I did have some scraps and I bought a few mini skein sets. But I personally find blankets that are all hand-dyed yarn, whether it's stripes, squares, triangles, whatever, it's too overstimulating for me, and I don't feel like I can enjoy the yarns themselves because they just kind of blend together, and I don't think they're just not my cup of tea. So I wanted to break it up with some white, which is what I did, and I'm so glad that I did, because it's giving me like quilt vibes, but I'm getting to enjoy every single colour. There's no like order to the colour, it's all pretty random, though I am trying to kind of like keep it evenly spread and not have too many similar colours next to each other. There are some repeated colours, but it's mainly going to be lots of different ones. And my only kind of criteria is that it is like tonal or variegated or speckled, and not too bright. No, like I decided not to put this bright, pretty solid pink in there, because I think it just would have like stood out too much. They're definitely more on the slightly more subdued side, and like equally with this crazy neon, highly variegated, just wouldn't have worked in this blanket. So there is some kind of logic to it, but it is mainly just like have fun, go with what feels right. And it's just been so soothing and comforting for me, and it's become like a security blanket. Like, there's no other way to say it. I feel like I'm really low in the shot, so that's a bit better, isn't it? It's been my comfort. It's been my comfort blanket. It got me through a really tough couple of weeks. It really helped me reset myself and really go back to what it is about knitting that I enjoy, and it's just been fantastic. I've loved it. So I was working on it, and I got to this point and I was like, yay, it's looking and feeling so big now, it's going to look great. Let's go and drape it over the end of Penny's bed and see how it looks. And Penny's got a full-size single, like a proper single bed, and it looked tiny. It looked so small in the context of a bed, and I was like, no, I'm not even halfway to the blanket that I wanted. But one of the joys about this blanket is I can stop at any point. When kind of figuring out the construction of this, and I did have to give it a few different goes, I have made it so that my edges are like finished. I'm just slipping the last stitch so that I get that nice kind of like knit edge rather than garter bumps. But the way I've been making sure like that the triangles sit in this kind of join here, I've done a few different techniques to make sure that that edge is really smooth and beautiful. I've got one little cheeky added on square on this corner here. But I've just been making sure to pay real attention to those edges so that I can stop at any point. I could stop this now and then go and give it her to use in her room. I've made like a reading nook, like a corner with like a canopy with a tent and like loads of cushions and fluffy rugs on the floor, and we do Where's Wally in the tent every night before bed, and she loves it. And this would be perfect for in there because it's small and she can like wrap herself up in it, but it doesn't take up loads of space. And then I could decide to add on a load of ones in like a couple of years when she's a bit bigger and needs more coverage, kind of thing. I just love that about it. Like doing a whole blanket project, it's not something I ever really thought I'd do because the idea of doing something so massive is just not appealing to me. So the fact that I can stop at any point is what's really making this project like happen. Does that make any sense? So yeah, the construction of it. So it's weird because I think of it, I need a square. Hang on. When I'm thinking of this blanket, I'm not thinking of it like this, I'm thinking of it like a diamond. So I started here, I did my first like square, and then I added that side, and then that side, and then that side, and then that side, and then until we get bigger and bigger and bigger. And basically I just add a row up here, and then I add a row up here, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So when I've only added on one side, it becomes a rectangle. But overall it's like working as like a diamond kind of thing. So when it comes to constructing the triangles, we've had our first one here. All the decreased triangles are exactly the same, but the increased ones, if I'm adding on this side, this little corner triangle is one method. When I add on this side, this little corner triangle is a different method, but then everything after that is the same method, and it is done using short rows. With the prism blanket, you like pick up stitches as you go, and I found that the seam was quite bulky and kind of had quite big holes in it, and it wasn't enjoyable to do. It was fiddly, you couldn't really get in the flow of it. I just didn't really enjoy it, and I was like, this would be so much more enjoyable for me if it was short rows. And so when you're adding on like this little edge guy, you pick up stitches on one side, and then you short row those picked up stitches and you increase up the other side. But when I go to add in my next triangle here, I will be picking up stitches all the way down here and all the way back up here again. And then I break my yarn and I slip one side so I'm in the middle, and then I work back and forth, short rowing either side until I've filled in this gap, and then I decrease the top. So yeah, that's kind of how I'm doing it. I know that that's very, very vague, and I've had a lot of people asking me how I did it, if I'll share how I did it, if I'm going to write a pattern. I do not know. I'm not going to make any promises. I would like to make a pattern for this because I've enjoyed it so much. It's the perfect advent. I have used fingering weight yarn, held double, and I have used Filcolon Arvetta held double for my white triangles because I love it, I trust it, I've got loads of it, it's affordable. But this is, like I say, 30 squares in total currently, or 30 colours, 30 white ones. So if you were using a 24 skein advent calendar and they were 20 gram skeins, each of my triangles I made to be 10 grams or just under 10 grams to make sure I had enough. So you could technically do 48 squares if you used each colour twice. Obviously I've not used every colour twice here because I'm just like scrappy, but if you wanted to make a blanket from your advent, then this would be great for that. And I think once I get to, I've got 18 more squares to go. By that point it's going to be pretty sizable, so you can get a really decent blanket. Obviously you need to have the white yarn as well, but you know, you can get a cone of merino DK weight yarn from Woolly Knit at a really amazing price at the moment that would be like perfect. You just need like a super wash merino really, don't you? Or you could make a smaller blanket and do every triangle in hand dyed. You could do a square. This square is 20 grams, so you could do a square in each colour and add them on, just do like that kind of mitre square blanket vibe. There are so many different ways that you could make this blanket. So many different sizes. Like, you could just, yeah. I think it would probably be a good idea for me to write this pattern. However, like I said, I'm not putting any pressure on myself whatsoever at the moment, at all. If I feel like it, I will. If I don't feel like it, I won't. I've got quite a few designs on the go. Obviously, I've got the Sibling and the crosshatch sweater. Shall we call it that? I don't know. I have got a name for it in my mind, to be honest, and I just don't want to say it yet because I'm not sure. It's not the crosshatch sweater, it's something else. But I've also got my Midland cardigan, which I've shared with you recently. All these things I do want to continue to do. I do want to develop them. I do want to release them. I do get a lot of joy from designing, but I just needed to take a little bit of a step back from it, really. So I would like to do a pattern for this eventually. Though you could, you know, in the meantime, if you wanted to recreate this, you could use the Prison Blanket pattern by Pearl Soho. It's free. You just do the triangles a lot smaller. Like, I think my triangles are 45 stitches, and in the Pearl Soho one, they're 85, so they're like almost half the size. But again, however many stitches that you get with 10 grams, like, it's fine. That's the other thing. Just because I have 45 stitches doesn't mean you need to have 45 stitches per triangle. Like, whatever you get, you can apply the pattern to kind of any stitch count. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I really want to write up this pattern. Because also the testing process would be so quick and so simple, because you'd only actually have to do like 4 of the squares. Because like, this is one type, this is one type, this is one type, and you're starting one, like, and then you just keep adding them on in whichever order you want. So I wouldn't even need anyone to actually test the whole blanket. I'm talking myself into it, can you tell? What will happen is there'll be something important that I need to do, and I will procrastinate and stop myself from doing that important thing by writing this pattern for this blanket. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know, but that's my blanket and I love it so much, and it's just, yeah, my comfort. So that's all my projects that I'm working on at the moment. I do have a load more whips downstairs, but they're not anything that I've been working on recently or intend to work on anytime soon. I do think I might do a whip video, because I recently obviously did a big yarn sort out, big yarn destash. I ripped out and rewound so many projects that are just like gone now, and I was left with the core whips that I'm like, these are things that I do want to work on and finish eventually. So I might show those to you at some point soon. But there we are. I don't have any major acquisitions. I have bought some yarn recently, but it's not like anything particularly fancy or special. It's just kind of like some yarn that I've needed. I have actually just ordered some yarn because I would like to make Penny a Where's Wally jumper for her birthday. She is freakishly good at Where's Wally. She loves it. We do it every night before bed. It's so much fun. Like, I don't know if you've ever done a Where's Wally or Where's Waldo if you're from certain countries, but you have like Wally, Wanda, the bad guy, Oddlaw, and the Wizard Whitebeard. But you also have Woof the dog's tiny little tail, and it's really difficult to find. And in the time it takes me to find Woof's tiny tail, she's found the other 4 characters, and it's just so much fun. I love it. And like, every time I open it, I'm like, I need to do it. I need to make her a Where's Wally costume. Like, it's just a red and white striped round yoke sweater. It's just like this. This, but red and white stripes with long sleeves, and like, I could do it. And then also obviously the matching hat, which is just like a red brim, white hat, red pom-pom, and then buy her some like comedy, like dressing up glasses or something, and she could be Where's Wally, because she loves dressing up. And I'm like, once my John Arbon sweater is done, that will leave me with 2 weeks until Penny's birthday. So I think it's totally doable. I think I'll probably give it a go. So I've ordered the yarn. I ordered some Cascade 220 superwash, because like standard, it'll work, it's affordable. My only worry is it's like the red and white. Will it bleed? Will it not? So if I've got time, I might pre-wash the red. But also what I'll probably do is I'll just steam block it. I won't fully wet block it. I haven't fully wet blocked this. I've just steam blocked it. Obviously it would eventually need to be washed, but because it's going to be more of like a dressing up thing, not something she's going to wear all the time, though she probably will want to wear it all the time, I'm hoping it won't get too mucky. Penny knows now to take her jumper off when she eats. She knows. I don't even have to ask her anymore. If she's wearing a handmade jumper, she's like, I'm going to take it off before I eat my tea. The girl knows. Even at nursery, she takes it off. So proud. So yeah, I think I'm going to make her a Where's Wally jumper, because Yay. But other than that, no major acquisitions. When I saw the amount of yarn that I had, even after the de-stash, it was quite eye-opening, because before it was spread over 2 quite large shelving units, and you'd think that it would look like there was more of it, but it was deceptive. But once it was all in a pile together on the floor, when it was time to reorganise it, it was like, wow, got a lot of yarn. I will never go on a yarn ban. I do not partake in any form of restriction in my life. So if there is a yarn that I see and I want and I can afford it, I'll get it. But I am definitely leaning more towards getting through some of those old whips, getting through a little bit of stash. I've definitely been re-inspired by my stash. There's quite a lot of things I'm quite excited to cast on. And now that I've kind of let go of the pressure and the duty to be a constant design machine, I actually feel like I can let myself do that, which is exciting. So yeah, I don't know why I got onto that subject, but there you go. So I'm going to do a little bit of chat about where I'm at the moment. Obviously, it's not everybody's cup of tea, coffee. It's cold. So if you're not bothered about the live chat, that's totally fine. But I know a lot of you are here and have been here for a long time and are interested in what's going on with me. Feels really self-indulgent to say, but I know this because you tell me. So I thought it would be nice to do a little bit of an update, because I've come a long way since my last update, and it's been such a massive growth month for me in so many ways, and I wanted to share it with you because my mental health over the past, let's say, 6 months has been really, really bad, and it feels so nice to finally kind of be able to talk about it in a really positive way, in a really hopeful way, and yeah, it feels really good to do that. So, brief overview. After Vlogmas 2022, I kind of finally admitted how bad things were, kind of had a bit of a breakdown, got to crisis point, kind of finally recognised that what I was going through was depression. I was in denial about it for a very, very long time, but I couldn't ignore it anymore, and I took the step in January to start therapy, and it was the best thing ever happened to me. OMG. Big journey. And it's been a very, very up and down journey. Like the kind of classic thing with therapy, up and down, back and forth. Like, it's not a straight line, it's not linear, it's messy and it's difficult, but it's been amazing. And overall, even though it's been like this, the general trend has been forward and up. And the past few weeks has been a real breakthrough for me, mainly triggered by losing my Instagram. I say losing my Instagram, it's still there, it still exists, which is really frustrating because I can't go and shut it down. I basically can no longer access it because the 2-step verification that Instagram made me do isn't working. The code doesn't appear, even though I set it all up with Apple passwords. The backup codes that Instagram gave me don't work. The help centre doesn't work. I can't contact anyone. I can't get a message to Instagram. It's just gone. I can't access it. Maybe I will be able to again one day, but I probably won't, even if I could. I don't know. I probably would, let's be honest. Yeah. But what it did was it really triggered some hard, deep thinking, and I was quite shocked. Not shocked, but it was difficult to accept what I realised once Instagram was taken away from me. I finally realised the true hold it had on me, the amount of my life it was taking up, the effect it was having on my mood, and most importantly, my worth. And this is something that I've really kind of come to terms with since my last update on this, since the knitting chat. And I've had a couple of therapy sessions since. I've been working through it very hard with my therapist and like with my husband and with my friends and stuff. And I basically realised that I had swapped the scale for followers. Let me explain. Little bit of a trigger warning. I'm going to touch on my eating disorders, but I'm not going to go hardcore into it. But when I was in the depths of my eating disorder a few years ago, the scale ruled my life to the point where it fully dictated my mood, how I felt about myself, my worth. I would weigh myself multiple times a day. It would be the first thing I did in the morning before I did anything else, well, apart from one thing, but ill. I would step on that scale, and if the number went down, I felt good. If the number went up, I felt S-H-I-T. Hello, baby girl. Cluck, cluck, are you a duck?
Me up first.
Here comes the other one. Hello. You okay? You can have some puffs.
Blah, 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 blah.
Okay, so yeah, it was dictating my life, and it would happen multiple times a day, and it was just so toxic and awful. And I know it's something that a lot of people relate to. I mean, I wasn't even conscious of it until like I was deep in the bad place, and yeah, I couldn't believe how I couldn't see it. So realising that I'd basically swapped that number on the scale for number of followers and pattern sales was hard, because I thought I'd broken free of that kind of external validation need, but I hadn't. And it's so funny because the behaviours are exactly the same. It'd be the first thing I'd do in the morning. I'd open the app, I'd go to it, I'd refresh. Has the number gone up? Have I got more followers? Okay, good. Has it gone down? Okay, no, that's bad. Or have I sold, how many patterns have I sold today? I do a launch, and did that launch sell more patterns than the last one? And comparing to myself, and it was just, yeah, it was just really, really bad. It just wasn't good at all. And I wasn't even conscious that I was doing it. Like, honestly, the mind is just mad. So having that suddenly taken away from me, like the first red flag was just how, with my reaction to it, I was gutted, it killed me. I was sobbing hours. I was upset about this. So that was kind of the first red flag. But then really kind of digging deep into my behaviour and seeing what was going on was very, very eye-opening. And not just that, it was just like, just how much of my life and like my time it was taking up. Like I couldn't walk past my phone without tapping it and seeing if there was a notification, and if there was, which 9 times out of 10 there would be, I'd like then like be sucked in, and it would be like all day, every day, like constant. And it's just, yeah, it was bad. And I would have told anyone that, you know, my relationship with Instagram was fine. Like I wasn't comparing myself to like other people, even though I think I was really a little bit. So coming to terms with all that was tricky, but I quite quickly kind of embraced it. I think like you can't unsee it once you see it, and I don't think it's like I could never go on a diet again. Like I can't unsee that. I could never put myself through that. I mean, it's tricky. Eating disorder is very complicated, but I feel quite confident that like since recovering from eating disorder, I have kind of slipped back into it and kind of started like a diet, even slightly subconsciously, but like I snap out of it very quickly. It's like, what are you doing? You can't do this. And I feel like it's the same with Instagram now. I have started a new Instagram, but the boundaries are very, very different now. I have not set it up as a business account, so I don't see reach, I don't see stats, I don't see followers up, obviously I see followers up, but I don't see followers down. And it's just like, yeah, back to basics. I have turned off my notifications. Oh my gosh, so freeing. I hardly look at my phone anymore, and when I do, it's on my own terms, when the time is right, when it's appropriate, and when I'm there for it. And obviously because it's no longer Penrose Knits, it's just Laura Penrose. There aren't as many people on there, so I'm not getting as many messages and as many comments and all that kind of stuff, and that's been really, really good. I always had my story replies turned off, and that's still the same, and I don't really check my message requests that often. I do go in there sometimes, but quite honestly, that's one of the things I found the hardest, like feeling like I had to reply to every single message. So I'm giving myself a lot more grace, and if I'm not in the headspace at the time to reply to a message, I won't. And that's not because I don't appreciate or want your messages, like I do, and sometimes it's like it can be really, really helpful for me. But if I don't reply to your message, it's just me protecting myself. Yeah, let's not go too far into that, because I shouldn't have to apologise for that. But yeah, I'm feeling so much more better about it. I don't go on Instagram until I am dressed in the morning, which is a new kind of rule. And quite hard because like breaking that habit was quite difficult. Like I'll check my WhatsApp because only the people who actually know in real life and who are serious people not serious people, who are like important people in my life have my actual phone number. So if there's a WhatsApp message, which there isn't that often, I will check that. But I will get up, sort the kids breakfast, get them dressed, get myself ready for the day, and quite often I'll then go straight on the school run, so I won't even look at Instagram to come home from the school run. But just having that little boundary in the morning has definitely been helpful, and kind of same at bedtime. I don't look at Instagram before bed anymore. I listen to my audiobook, sometimes play a bit of Candy Crush, but I mainly listen to my audiobook. I'm right at the end of the Throne of Glass series, and I'm not ready for it to be over. I sobbed my heart out yesterday listening to quite a big bit. And yeah, I'm not ready for it to be over. So we're enjoying that. So yeah, I've just reassessed my relationship with it really, and going forward, I'm just gonna be making sure that I'm only in that space if it is supporting me and my mental health and not against it. And I've got to be very conscious of that and very aware of that because it's difficult. It's sneaky. I didn't realise it was happening, and it was happening. And it was doing really bad things to me and I couldn't even see it. So yeah, that's where I am with that. I feel like, I hope that you can tell that I'm doing better, because it's not just the like Instagram thing that's improved in my mental health in the past few weeks. I've really I feel the most level I've felt in a very long time, and I'm talking years. My lows can get very, very low, and I hadn't felt like fully happy, not even any highs, like for a long time. And now I'm at the point where yes, I do still have low days, and actually mood wise I am in a bit of a dip at the moment, but it doesn't feel so all consuming and dramatic as it used to. Like I'm like, yeah, my mood's a little bit lower at the moment, but that's okay. We're going to embrace it. We're going to wear comfy clothes. We're not going to make any plans. We're just going to chill out. We're going to do what feels good, and it's fine. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to talk to people about it. I'm going to let my husband know that I'm feeling a little bit low, and then he can, adjust his behaviour slightly so he doesn't get the full brunt of it as well. But even then, like when I'm not in a low, it's not like I'm the opposite and I'm on this great big raging high. I'm just like level and more clear-headed, and I feel like I'm actually present in my life again. The whole Instagram thing, what it really highlighted was the fact that I was putting all my value and worth into like Penrose Knits and Instagram and this kind of thing going on, and I could no longer see the worth in like my actual job. Let's be honest guys, like my actual job in this world, the reason I'm here, the thing that I do that's important and that matters is bringing up my children. And I'm in a very, very fortunate position that I get to do this. I get to be here with my children all day, every day. I don't have to go into an office or work at a job that I hate. And all I ever felt about that was guilt. I always felt undeserving, unworthy. I would always say, I know I'm so lucky to be in this position, but I never felt it. I just felt like I didn't deserve it, and I couldn't even enjoy it, which is just, an insult for one thing to every other person that isn't in this position, but just like robbing myself of this unique, special and short time in my life. This time when my kids are still dependent on me and I get to make their lives wonderful, it's going to be gone so quickly. I'm really realising this, especially with Jeff. The older he gets, the more of a person he becomes. We've switched from that just keeping two little human beings alive, keeping them fed and watered, to actually I'm shaping adults now. I really, really am. Obviously, part of my therapy is to have, gone back into my childhood and stuff, and how like things that I went through like affected me as an adult, and that's kind of really become very clear that how I treat my children, how they see me, how I like, they're little sponges. Like my son can, you know, snap like that, and he can shout like that, and I know that he's learned that from me. That's where that came from. That was hard to come to terms with. But I'm now realizing that, yeah, I'm in this very special stage of my life, and there is so much worth and value in that. Like, when I'm no longer on this planet, what are people going to say? Are they going to say, did you know she had 20,000 followers on Instagram? Or are they going to say, how beautiful are her children? What lovely children that she created. Like, it's true. Like, and I knew that before. I just couldn't see it. I just couldn't feel it. People would say to me, oh, you just need to change your point of view. You just need to stop thinking about you have to do it. Thinking about you get to do it. And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, I understand it in theory, but I just couldn't feel it. Like, I was just so shut off from my entire life, and now I can finally see it, and it's amazing. It's amazing. And I'm not, you know, I'm not saying that I'm fixed, I'm cured, everything's great, everything's wonderful, I can finally see everything, because that's not how life works. That's not how the mind works. That's not how the body works. I still have bad days. I still shout at my children. I still lose my temper. I still hate myself on days. I still look in the mirror and just not want to like see it. Like, these things still happen, but they no longer control my life and my sense of worth. And that's a big, big thing. So I'm gonna stop talking about it now because I feel like I want to cry. But I thought it was really important to share that with you guys, because for so long it's been, things are really bad and things are finally feeling good again. And I'm just, yeah, I'm excited for what the next few months are going to bring. I have never looked forward to summer, and I'm actually looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the peace, the quiet, no school run. I'm looking forward to being able to just chill out in my home with my family, knit what I want, when I want. That's the thing I think I'm most excited about. Like, when I cast on those socks, I really felt like Knitting Pickle Podcast year one again. I felt that feeling of just casting things on that suddenly catch me, and then working on them non-stop and obsessively for like 2 days, and then they're done, and it's like that kind of excitement and passion of for just to knit, just to make things. It's not about, you know, writing the best pattern or selling the most copies or having a groundbreaking design, and like, it was just about the joy of knitting. And I just feel like I'm back there again, and it's such a nice place to be. So with that, we're gonna round it up. I'm gonna call it a day. Smiling, guys, so happy. Thank you for joining me. I really hope you enjoy this episode. Extra special thank you if you stayed right till the end, because I know I can be a little intense. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I don't know when I'm going to be uploading again. I would really like to do like a vlog, but I need to sort out my camera situation. I do have my vlogging camera. It's just my big DSLR that doesn't have a working battery at the moment, but we'll see. So yeah, it'll probably be like something a bit more relaxed or vloggy or whip video or something. I don't really know. Could be another podcast, who knows. We're just going with the flow. But I will see you again very, very soon. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a fabulous day. Bye-bye. I forgot to show you my basket. There you go. This is like outtakes bonus feature for those of you who got to the end. This is my basket of wonderful beauty, like just joy. It's like going to a sweet shop. It's like pick and mix, but even better. And that's saying a lot, because I love pick and mix. So an extra special thank you to everyone who donated to this. And I do actually need to say an extra special thank you, and I feel awful for forgetting to do this. Literally weeks ago, I got a message from a lovely gentleman saying, my wife absolutely loves your podcast, and she has just turned 50, I believe it was. It was a big birthday, and would I say happy birthday to her? So Tracy, happy birthday. Thank you for your constant support, for your humour, for every time you've made me laugh, for every time you've kept it so unbelievably real, for every little moment of support, for test knitting for me, for sending me yarn, and just for being a wonderful human being. I'm sorry this took so long, but happy belated birthday, and here's to many, many, many more. Just, yeah, never change, always be you. Bye bye.